A violent storm leaves a lone survivor, Marks, stranded on a reef. After 3 days of unconscious sleep, he awakens to a horrifying sight. His crew lies lifeless in the sea. Only he has survived. With heavy grief, he buries his fallen sailors on the beach, clinging to the faint hope of survival. Haunted by the unknown dangers lurking within the dense forest, Marks spends his nights perched in the trees, wary of what the darkness might conceal. At dawn, he discovers his battered ship still afloat offshore. Determined, he boards it and searches for supplies. To his shock, a familiar sound greets him. His loyal dog, Simba, miraculously alive. Inside the wreck, Marks gathers food, tools, and weapons, salvaging everything he can before the ship finally sinks into the sea. Together with Simba, he hauls their precious supplies back to shore, enough to last a month. Yet survival is not enough. Marks must also find a way off the island. Venturing deep into the forest with his shotgun, he hopes to discover signs of land nearby. Crossing waterfalls and treacherous terrain, he finds only endless ocean beyond the island. His heart sinks as he realizes rescue may never come. Still, he builds a shelter along the coast, scanning the horizon every day with binoculars, refusing to surrender hope. Months pass in isolation. 6 long months of survival, searching, and waiting. Then, while gathering oysters on the rocks one morning, Simba suddenly barks, alerting Marks to something unexpected. A new chapter of survival is about to begin. Months into his isolation, Marks's life takes a sudden turn. While gathering oysters with Simba, the dog barks wildly. At first, Marks dismisses it until he notices something extraordinary. A massive ship sails across the horizon. Heart racing, he scrambles for his signal torch and rushes to the fire pit he had prepared. But the flames are too weak to catch attention. Desperate, Marks fires his shotgun into the air, the sound lost in the crashing waves. With no time to waste, he dives into the sea, determined to reach the ship. He swims furiously, only to realize he is still in shallow waters, his feet scraping the ocean floor. Exhausted and powerless, he watches the ship vanish from sight. The waves carry him back to shore, broken and ashamed. Simba's restless barking echoes his despair. Yet this failure forces Marks to face reality. Survival must come first. If rescue is not certain, he must learn to live. Over the following year, Marks builds a sturdy house from the island's resources. His days become full, harvesting pineapples and mangoes, hunting wild animals, and even discovering a natural hot spring. Life, though lonely, becomes strangely peaceful. With Simba at his side, he endures. 2 years pass. Marks keeps a daily log on his laptop, writing journals to fight boredom. At times, he plays music, and Simba dances along, lifting his spirits. But the solitude begins to weigh on him. Memories of his wife bring him to tears, and his quiet island paradise slowly turns into a prison of endless routine. Then, everything changes. While walking along the beach, Marks stumbles across something unsettling. An enormous footprint, far larger than any normal human's. Instead of relief at discovering others, dread grips him. Armed with his gun, he ventures into the forest, where he encounters strange poisonous trees and hears unfamiliar voices echoing through the jungle. Realization strikes. He is not alone. Dangerous strangers have come to the island. Panicked but determined, Marks rushes back to his shelter, gathering every weapon he has. For the first time since the storm, his struggle is no longer just about survival, but about defending his life against an unknown threat. Guided by strange voices in the forest, Marks finally discovers the source. A group of primitive natives performing a gruesome ritual sacrifice. Hidden behind a tree, he watches in horror as bound captives struggle desperately to escape their fate. The scene is brutal and terrifying, leaving Marks frozen with fear. After a tense inner battle, he makes a bold decision. He must act. Raising his gun, he fires, scattering the natives and creating just enough chaos for one of the captives to break free. To his shock, the escaped native soon approaches him directly. Marks tenses, weapon ready, but instead of hostility, The young man bows, placing Marx's foot on his shoulder, a gesture of gratitude. Yet the relief is short-lived. In the next moment, the native seizes Marx's gun. From his clumsy handling, it's clear he doesn't understand the weapon. But Marx panics, worried that an accidental shot could draw danger. Frustrated by the language barrier, Marx tries to bridge the gap through gestures. He places fruit on a stone as a peace offering. The native understands and cautiously accepts. But before trust can grow, a sudden threat emerges. Shadows moving in the trees, hostile figures charge from the woods, and Marx reacts instinctively, firing his gun. To his surprise, the native joins the fight, battling alongside him. The clash is brutal, ending quickly in bloodshed. But then, Marx realizes with horror that their attackers are not ordinary men. They are savage, inhuman beasts. The natives scatter in terror, leaving Marx to face the truth. This island holds threats far worse than isolation. Determined to defend himself and Simba, he fortifies his shelter with sharpened fences, deadly traps, and a cache of weapons. For 6 long months, he prepares for the inevitable attack. But silence remains. The waiting gnaws at him. Finally, he resolves to take the fight to the enemy. Armed with his shotgun and with Simba at his side, Marx ventures deep into the jungle. But ambush strikes first. A shot tears through him, sending him crashing against a tree, bleeding and helpless. Simba flees in fear, abandoning his wounded master. As darkness closes in, figures emerge. The natives return, not enemies but curious allies. One kneels beside him, fascinated not by his injury but by his shotgun. Sitting cross-legged, the native inspects the weapon with childlike wonder, unaware of the power it carries. Summoning his last strength, Marx struck the native across the head and wrestled back his shotgun. He fired a warning shot into the trees, forcing the other man to retreat in confusion. The tension between them hung heavy, Marx trying to explain the weapon's danger, the native unable to understand a word. To demonstrate, Marx aimed at a nearby tree and blasted it apart. The native's eyes widened, comprehension dawning. Yet he refused to appear weak. Lifting a massive log, he hurled it effortlessly aside, then raised his fresh kill as if to prove his own strength. Marx, strangely reassured, lowered his guard. Perhaps this man was not an enemy after all. Testing his trust, Marx brought the native back to his shelter and shared food with him. For the first time in years, Marx no longer felt completely alone. Yet his fear lingered. That night, he chained the man to prevent escape. At dawn, Marx was startled awake, only to find the native bringing him food. Realizing his mistake, guilt washed over him. He freed the man, gave him a name, Philip, and began teaching him language. Philip proved quick to learn. Within 6 months, he could hold simple conversations and worked tirelessly alongside Marx. They planted crops, hunted, and built together. Slowly, the island no longer felt like a prison. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Marx shared his faith. He told Philip about the Bible, about God, the creator of all things, of the heavens and mankind. He longed for Philip to believe as he did. But Philip stood firm. His tribe worshipped the Godbird totem, a faith rooted in the visible and tangible. Your God, he said, lives only in will and in souls. My God is alive in the world around me. The clash of beliefs ignited tension. Marx, frustrated, held up the Bible and insisted that God lived inside it. Philip turned the pages and found nothing but emptiness. His doubt and defiance enraged Marx, who shouted at him, calling him a savage. Wounded and furious, Philip stormed away into the night. From that day forward, the two men, once companions, lived apart, their fragile bond shattered by faith and pride. Though they lived apart, time softened Marx's anger. Watching Philip spear fish with skill while he used his rod, Marx realized the truth. Real respect wasn't about forcing sameness, but accepting differences. One evening, he swallowed his pride and approached Philip. I'm sorry, he said earnestly. I was wrong to insult your faith. From now on, we respect each other and never interfere again. Philip listened in silence, then nodded. The tension dissolved. Their friendship rekindled. Soon, the two were inseparable once more, laughing like boys, chasing crabs along the shore, and finding joy in the simplest moments. For a time, it seemed their bond would last forever, but shadows returned. One day, Philip revealed a secret. He had been exiled to this island as punishment, left as a sacrifice to his tribe's god. By saving him, Marks had unknowingly disrupted the ritual. The tribe would come again, and they would not stop until the sacrifice was complete. Determined to fight back, the two prepared a desperate plan. At a temple near the volcano, they planted explosives, ready to strike when the tribe returned. Weeks later, echoes of chanting rumbled from the cave. The men lit their torches, waiting for the perfect moment. But fate turned cruel. Simba, curious and loyal as ever, ran toward the sparks just as the explosion ignited. The blast consumed him instantly. Marks fell to his knees in disbelief, his heart shattered. He buried Simba with trembling hands, praying for his only true companion. Grief soon gave way to fear. Philip warned him. If the tribe discovered they still lived, they would never relent. Marks proposed an escape, building a massive wooden vessel to sail back to England. But Philip refused. His voice hardened as he reminded Marks of his people's suffering at the hands of white colonizers, captured and paraded as trophies. Then his eyes narrowed. "Tell me, am I just another gift to you?" The question cut deep. Marks denied it, but his words only fueled Philip's rage. Their fragile trust shattered once again. Alone, desperate, and racing against time, Marks threw himself into building the wooden ship. Day and night, through storms and blistering winds, he hacked at massive trees, determined to finish before the coming typhoon. His body ached, but his will refused to break. At last, the ship stood ready. On the day he fastened the final ropes, Philip appeared once more. Just as Marks prepared to leave the island alone, Philip returned unexpectedly. His voice rang out with defiance. "I am not a slave. I am Friday, your friend." Grateful and sincere, he handed Marks a handmade necklace. "You saved me. May the god of birds guide you to safety." The two men reconciled, their bond renewed. But their reunion was short-lived. A typhoon struck with merciless force, tearing through the island. They carried what they could into a fragile shelter, praying it would withstand the storm. By morning, devastation surrounded them. Their painstakingly built vessel had been swept away. With the full moon approaching, they knew the tribe would soon return for the ritual. With time running out, Marks and Philip turned to ingenuity. They built traps using gunpowder, rigged windmills to fire weapons, and shattered mirrors to create dazzling distractions. Before battle, they prayed side by side, each to his own god, yet united in hope. When night fell, Marks disguised himself as a native and lured the tribe toward the traps with the haunting notes of a flute. One by one, their enemies fell into the ambush. Victory seemed certain until a final warrior emerged. The fight was brutal. Marks suffered a devastating wound to his chest. Philip fought desperately, slaying the attacker and treating Marks with healing herbs. But infection set in quickly. If left untreated, Marks would die. Choosing loyalty over safety, Philip carried his friend back to his tribe, risking death at the hands of his own people. To their surprise, the tribe did not kill Marks, for it was forbidden to slay the sick. Instead, he was nursed back to health. But once healed, the law demanded a duel between him and Philip. Only one man could leave alive. On the appointed day, the former friends faced each other in the tribal arena. Neither wished to fight, yet both knew refusal meant execution. Their clash was heavy with sorrow. Finally, Marks was struck down, his dagger slipping into the fire. Defenseless, he spread his arms, ready to die at his friend's hand. But Philip could not do it. His heart would not allow him to betray their bond. At that moment, chaos erupted, gunfire rang out. White men stormed the tribe, hunting once again. In the chaos, Philip was shot and killed. Shattered, Marks was taken aboard the ship, rescued yet broken. He returned to England, reunited with his wife and family. Outwardly, Life resumed, but the island, and the friendship forged there, never left him. Years later, as he sat by the fire, his mind always drifted back to Philip, his friend, his brother, his Friday. A friendship stronger than fear, faith, or fate. A bond worth remembering for a lifetime.